A company signs a treaty with a ruler it does not fully understand, in a language neither side completely controls, enforced by soldiers who are not yet officially an army. In 1757, after the Battle of Plassey, representatives of the East India Company secured power in Bengal through an agreement with Mir Jafar, an arrangement shaped as much by confusion and pressure as by clarity. Months later, a monarch's authority is invoked to legitimize it. By then, land has changed hands, revenue is already being collected, and a private enterprise has begun governing millions. The Crown did not issue the command, but the outcome belongs to it. Across oceans, authority moves in fragments: sealed letters, cargo manifests, legal charters, and whispered agreements between merchants and princes. Ships arrive carrying orders that no longer match reality. Decisions are made in heat and uncertainty, then justified later in distant chambers. In 1600, a royal charter issued by Elizabeth I created the East India Company as a trading body. Yet that single document would later be used to justify actions far beyond its original intent. In ports, forts, and administrative rooms, power takes shape without supervision. Distance slows instruction, but it accelerates action. This is the early British Empire, late 17th century. What appears to be a monarchy expanding its power is, in reality, a system engineered to make expansion cheaper, safer, and more profitable than it should have been. This account follows Great Britain from a vulnerable maritime state to the center of a global imperial machine, tracing how geography, sea power, private capital, and delegated authority combined to multiply control across continents. Great Britain begins as an island that is both protected and exposed. The sea blocks invasion, but it also creates dependence. Food, timber, and raw materials arrive by ship, and if those routes fail, the system weakens quickly. Security, therefore, depends on movement. From the 16th century onward, rivalry with continental powers intensifies this reality. France and Spain expand outward, claiming colonies and trade routes, and British leaders begin to recognize that control cannot remain local. It must extend outward or risk being contained. Expansion becomes strategy. Trade routes stretch across the Atlantic. Ships carry goods, labor, and capital between distant regions. Investors fund voyages that promise returns not from land alone, but from circulation. Wealth begins to move, and as it moves, it grows. Trade fuels industry. Industry demands resources. Resources require access. Expansion becomes continuous, not occasional. But this growth introduces a problem. It moves faster than authority. Decisions are made far from London. Communication takes months. By the time instructions arrive, conditions have changed. Control lags behind action. In Bengal, after 1757, company officials reorganized revenue systems without waiting for approval, transforming a commercial foothold into administrative control before London could respond. The system is expanding beyond direct command. The solution is not to expand control. It is to outsource it. Royal authority is extended through charters, documents that grant private groups the right to act in the monarch's name. These entities are not states, yet they wield powers normally reserved for them. Among them, one becomes decisive: East India Company. It begins with trade. It quickly acquires territory. Factories become fortified positions. Agreements with local rulers turn into leverage. Disputes escalate into armed conflict. In places like Fort St. George, what began as a warehouse evolved into a fortified center of administration, where trade, military presence, and governance merged into one structure. And unlike a traditional army, this expansion does not rely on direct state funding. Investors carry the cost. Shareholders absorb the risk. The crown collects revenue when success arrives. This is the mechanism. Expansion without proportional expense. But there is a consequence. Authority begins to fragment. Decisions are made locally, often without approval, sometimes without awareness. By the time information reaches London, outcomes are already fixed. The system is no longer reacting to the monarchy, it is anticipating profit. Meanwhile, the state reinforces the structure from another direction. The Royal Navy expands, not only to defeat enemies, but to secure the routes that make this system possible. Trade laws restrict who can participate. Shipping lanes are protected, rivals are excluded. The capture of Gibraltar in 1704 during the War of the Spanish Succession illustrates this logic, turning a narrow passage into a controlled gateway for imperial movement. The result is not just dominance, it is control over movement itself. And everything within that movement becomes part of the system. By the 19th century, the system reaches its full scale under Queen Victoria. The empire stretches across continents, but it does not function as scattered territory. It operates as a network. Ports connect to railways. Railways link production zones to global markets. Goods move outward. Capital flows inward. London becomes the center where these flows are organized and processed. Control no longer depends on constant intervention. It depends on structure. Administrative systems standardize governance. Laws are codified. Bureaucracies manage revenue and order. Local elites maintain authority under imperial oversight. The system runs on routine. But beneath that routine, pressure builds. Control depends on balance. And balance is becoming harder to maintain. The system remains efficient, but it is not stable. Indirect rule reduces cost, yet it increases dependence on cooperation. Local rulers retain power, but only within limits defined by imperial interests. When alignment fails, pressure follows. Treaties restrict independence. Legal doctrines justify annexation. Economic systems bind elites to imperial control. Dependence deepens. At the same time, divisions are not left unmanaged. They are structured. Communities are categorized. Differences are reinforced. Rivalries are maintained. No single coalition is allowed to become strong enough to challenge authority. This keeps the system intact, but it also creates constant tension. Economic design intensifies this further. Raw materials flow outward from colonies, while manufactured goods flow inward. Local economies are reorganized around distant demand. Growth becomes uneven. The system continues to function, but it now requires constant management to hold together. The first major break comes when this balance fails. In the late 18th century, one region resists without fragmenting. Divisions do not hold. Opposition consolidates. Authority is challenged collectively rather than separately. The result is the American Revolution. In 1776, 13 colonies coordinated resistance rather than remaining divided, transforming scattered dissent into unified opposition and forcing Britain into a conflict it could not easily contain across distance. It exposes a structural limit. Distance can enable control, but it cannot guarantee it. Delegation can expand power, but it cannot ensure loyalty. The same system that allowed expansion now allows separation. The empire does not collapse, but it is forced to adapt. After the rupture, the system evolves. Expansion continues, but with adjustments. Some regions are granted autonomy, others remain tightly controlled. The empire becomes layered, combining self-governing dominions with directly ruled colonies and protectorates. This reduces pressure. It also extends longevity. The monarchy remains at the center, not as an active commander, but as a legal and symbolic anchor. Authority continues to operate in its name. Oaths are still sworn to it. Institutions still derive legitimacy from it. The system no longer depends on presence, it depends on continuity. And continuity holds it together. The monarchy did not simply build an empire, it built a system where distance itself became power.